Welcome back to Thimbleberry U. I am John Jaggay. I'm joined by Amy Walls from Thimbleberry Financial. Great to be back with you, Amy.
Jag, it's always fun to be here. Very excited about today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a fun topic today, which is kids and money. A lot of us have kids at home where we're having to play teacher and parent and 30 other things all at the same time right now. Now is a great time to really teach kids about money, and I know you are passionate about this topic.
I am. I may get pretty excited. When we're teaching kids about money, it's really important that we recognize we need to be intentional.
Okay.
You know, kids are little sponges and they're absorbing everything we do.
Whether we know it or not.
Absolutely. Sometimes you find that out in the worst times. But
Mama, you taught me that word.
Oh, yes. So whether we realize it or not, where we spend money is a reflection of what's important to us. Mm-hmm. And so if we're spending money in a certain way and telling our kids something else, that's not going to jive really well. They
don't buy the whole do as I say, not as I do. They learn by watching.
Absolutely, despite what I'd love. So in our house, we tell our kids our job is to make you the best grown-ups you can be. Mm-hmm. And so in thinking about money and our kids, we try to make sure that our decisions and actions are in alignment with that. And I'll put the caveat out here. I am not trying to say we are perfect at this. We are absolutely not. We never will be. I don't remotely think we are. But I've done a lot of reading on this topic and then tried to implement some of this with our kids. And so I just think it's just something I get excited about. The other thing that I think when you're teaching kids about money, you have to recognize is that we actually have to give our kids opportunities to fail with money. That's fail at earning it, fail at saving it, fail at spending it.
I like that.
Yeah, we have to do it while the stakes are low, right? If the first time your child gets money is when they go off to college and then they run up a big credit card debt, that's a problem. But if they're 5 years old and they lose $5 or $10 that they had planned to, buy a toy with or something, that's a little bit painful, but they learn to be more careful going forward.
Like you said, the stakes are a lot lower.
Yep.
You are preaching to the choir here. I was not very well educated when it came to money when I was a kid, and I watched, my parents get new cars probably more often than they should have and spend money on things that maybe were not the wisest things to spend money on. And then I got to college, and I'll be honest, I ran out of money about halfway through my senior year of college, ran out of spending money. But I wasn't going to lose out on the experience of going to the bar 3 nights a week with my friends and losing those memories. So it was swipe the tab 3 nights a week going out to the bar my senior year. And the enormous amount of debt and interest that I paid because of it, I had credit card problems all throughout my 20s and into my 30s because I had such bad spending habits. And I would see something, I would want it, I would buy it rather than thinking about the consequences.
That hurts. And that's exactly what we want to set kids up to learn early, right? Mm-hmm. You said a couple of things in there. One is that money doesn't grow on trees.
Right.
The second is we have to learn delayed gratification.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the big lessons that we don't think necessarily that money is about, but it's an important thing to learn for so many aspects of life, including how to be smart with your money.
Rather than, go dating myself here, but getting that new Nintendo game, maybe if I had to save for it and wait for a month, it would have meant a lot more as opposed to, well, that new Mario game is out next week. I have to get it now.
Yeah. I was kind of the opposite. And I joke with clients sometimes that there's ants and grasshoppers. And it's usually my ants that hear this story as opposed to the grasshoppers. And, it goes back to Aesop's fables. And there's the ants that are gathering and gathering and gathering. And from a client perspective, the ants are the ones that have enough money and actually can spend more, but they're afraid to spend. Mm-hmm. Grasshoppers, on the other hand, come in and they don't want to do the work. They just eat it all in the moment. And for them, it's a different body of work because we're trying to get them to save more to be on track.
My favorite analogy is the marshmallow experiment. Have we talked about this, or do you know this? Do you know the marshmallow story?
I absolutely do. I'm going to talk about this probably later if it comes up, but I do the marshmallow test with my kids about every 6 months.
Let's see if it changes.
Yeah. And because it is about the delayed gratification.
Let's leave that as a tease, and we'll come back to the marshmallow
right.
thing, because I love this, and I have a personal story about that too. But then one of the big things that we talk about with kids and money is an allowance. What are your thoughts on allowance and how to best employ that tactic?
Again, being intentional, it has to align with your values and the outcome you want. I mentioned earlier that I've read a number of books on money and kids, and my favorite is a little bit of an older book called Money Doesn't Grow on Trees.
Okay.
And I'm not actually sure how to say the author's name. I don't know if it's Neil or Neely, but Neil S. Godfrey is the author. It's a simple and short book. It's to the point. And what I love about it is it does try to align teaching your kids about money with what's important to your family, what your values are.
Okay.
If you read the reviews, there's a couple that say, oh, this is just too outdated. Just apply those concepts to today's world and it works just fine. It's the general concept that you're trying to work with, not the exact thing they say, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take much to make that tweak. But what I love about it is it sets up a good framework. It makes the distinction that someone is part of a community. And when we're talking about allowance, I think that's important. Like, for example, in our house, everybody contributes to dinner.
Okay.
In some way, shape, or form. You can cook, you can set the table, you can help do the dishes. Everybody contributes is the important part. And that's just one of the rules of our house. So you don't get paid for that. Mm-hmm. But then with allowance, what they really talk about is that, Chegg, you and I get to choose what job we have.
Within reason.
Right? We may not get to, if you are an employee, your employer also has to choose to hire you.
Right.
But you get to decide, this is the job I'm applying for. These are the general types of tasks I like to do. Mm-hmm. And you can set your child up to understand that world with having a job description. So what we'll try to do is every few months have my daughter, because she's 12, come up with a list of things that she would like to do around the house that we actually need help with.
Okay, I like that.
And when she gets tired of doing those, a few months down the road, then she can come up with a new list.
Okay.
There's a few things that she always loves to have on her list. Dusting baseboards is one thing that she's had on her list since she was 6 years old.
Lucky you.
When she does them.
Oh,
when
fair
she
enough.
does it.
Okay.
So she loves that one, and she loves that she can do, 1 room, 2 rooms a day, and it's pretty fast and easy. So that's kind of like having a job. And then the third thing that comes up with allowances is bonuses. Do you let your kid earn extra? Well, in the real world, you get a bonus when you've done your job well.
Yeah.
So in the book Money Doesn't Grow on Trees, they talk about you can only earn a bonus if you've actually done your job.
Right. That seems fair.
Right? My daughter can't decide that she's not going to do the activities on her list, but then on Saturday help us clean out the garage.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. What about good grades, Amy? Should kids be paid for getting good grades?
This is a good question. And I think, again, it comes back to what's important to you and what are you trying to reward. Mm-hmm. In our house, we don't pay our kids for grades, or at least, our older one. Just like it's an expectation that our kids contribute to dinner, it's an expectation that they do well at school. Even, when they go to gymnastics, there's expectations that they, 1, listen to their teacher, and 2, have fun. We set that. We remind them of that before any class they go to. So for us, paying them for grades doesn't make sense. It's just our expectation that they do well, they apply themselves. The other thing that I think for me that helped us make that decision is that, we have external and internal motivators. Mm-hmm. And we have to pay attention to the impact that those have. And a lot of studies show that when there are external motivators, the internal motivators are diminished.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so when I think about the fact that we're telling our kids, our job is to help make you the best grown-up you can be, I want them to develop their internal motivators more than their external motivators. So those are the decisions we made as a family.
Fair enough. So that deals with allowance and making sure that they've got good behaviors. What about saving money? How do you help the kids save money?
This is an area where first you have to give them structure, right? If you don't expose kids to something, you've kind of made the decision for them that thing probably is not going to be part of their life.
Yeah, think about all this other money that I did not save when I was a kid. So yeah, that makes sense.
I think of it in terms of sometimes religion, and I'm not trying to get into a topic we should probably stay away from here, but if kids aren't exposed to the idea of religion and formalized religion, you likely have made the choice that they're not ever going to have that part of their life because it's always going to be unusual to them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
So in this book, Godfrey talks about using jars initially to help the kids save. It's always a good idea when someone is starting something out to have progress be visible. And so jars are a really easy way, inexpensive way around the house that you can have their savings set up. So when your child gets allowance, have them save it for short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, and maybe even some for charity if that's something that's important to you. So short-term spending is money they can spend now, right away, no questions asked. Perhaps you have some rules around it, but medium-term money is helping them learn that delayed gratification and how to save for things they want down the road. It lets you teach goal setting to them and also help them have the sense of accomplishment that comes from reaching those goals. So maybe initially it's a little toy that they want for themselves that'll take 1 or 2 weeks of the medium-term savings that they're doing. And then eventually, as that grows and they build on it, maybe it's gifts at the holidays.
Yeah, okay.
Or hopefully in a couple of years, I can add my daughter's clothing budget into her allowance so that she actually has to keep track of that and know what that is. And I don't worry about it except when I pay her weekly. And then long-term, for us at least, is college.
I'd imagine that's the hardest part to get through is to say, okay, well, put this money in the college jar for this concept down the road as opposed to the new toy or the new item of clothing. That must be the hardest part to convey.
Well, if you just do it early on, they don't question that.
Oh, okay. I like that. Okay.
You're going to save for some of this. We want you to go to college if that's the right choice for you. So it's important that we save now. We're saving. You get to save too.
Okay.
And then I mentioned some to charity. Maybe that's 10%. This is also really a fun way to get to know more about your kids and what they think is really important. Let them do research on different organizations that they can give to and choose something that's important to you. It may be something that's very much not something you would have chosen,
right,
but something they love.
That is cool. I like that idea a lot.
There's some fun things you can teach your kids with these things, especially the medium-term bucket, such as matching dollars. A lot of employers match retirement contributions. So as your kid gets a little further along in saving for longer-term goals in those medium dollars, maybe it's gifts at the holidays that you tell them, if you save X amount, I will match that amount to put towards gifts. Earlier, Jag, you mentioned the marshmallow test. And like I said, I like to do this with my kids every 6 months or so. It teaches delayed gratification, and it's fun to see them progress in that.
Yeah.
But it also teaches the concept of compound interest.
Okay, for our listeners who aren't familiar with it, Amy, take me through the marshmallow test, because I've got a funny story about this, but why don't I have you explain it first?
So the marshmallow test is where you sit down with a marshmallow in front of you. You really don't want any other distractions. And you set a 10-minute timer. What I tell the kids is that if you sit here for 10 minutes and you don't eat that marshmallow, at the end of 10 minutes, you're going to get another marshmallow. And so they can either eat it and be done, or at the end of 10 minutes, they can get another marshmallow.
Right.
My daughter has learned to say at the end of 10 minutes when she gets her second marshmallow, well, can I sit here another 10 minutes and now have 4 marshmallows?
which is compound interest. There.
Absolutely.
You should be very proud, Amy. My wife has explained this marshmallow test to me, and my wife is a saver. My wife is very smart financially, and she's actually helped me break a lot of bad habits that I grew up with. And she's like, yeah, most young kids, they take the marshmallow. They can't wait. She's like, I was the weird one. I was the one that would sit there and wait for the second marshmallow. I said, well, I'm glad I married you. I married up in terms of financial intelligence.
Yep.
What about spending money? We've talked about saving money, putting it in the jars, and delayed gratification with the marshmallow. What about when it comes time to actually spend that money and buy things? What are your thoughts on that?
Think through your personal boundaries. So I can say for my 3-year-old, we are working on him not constantly turning everything into a weapon. And he also, I may have mentioned, sounds like an elephant running through our house most of the time these days when we're trying to keep him quiet so the other person can work. So the last thing I want is for him to be able to have a candy. So those are things that we've set as limits. You don't get to buy these things with your spending money. Now, we do have different rules if we're on vacation. So then buying a little candy is just fine.
Okay.
But we have times that they can do it versus not. With spending money, they get to sit with their mistakes. And we have to give them opportunities to make mistakes, right? Earlier, I talked about failing.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter has always loved stuffed animals. She calls them stuffies.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like every time we would go on vacation, she's gotten much better now, she would leave her money at home, despite us saying, hey, you may want to pack some of your spending money. So we would get to vacation, we'd be in a store, and she'd be like, oh, look at this great stuffy. It's awesome. I have to have it. And the conversation would sometimes be no. Mm-hmm. We told you. Sometimes it would be, okay, we will actually get that for you. We're here. And sometimes it's, hey, we'll help you out here. We know you have the money at home. And so we'll get it for you, but you get to pay us back when we get home. Mm-hmm. If we have to remind you when we get home, it's going to cost you X amount of money, right? Or for every day after we're home that you don't pay us back, it's $1 additional.
Interest.
Yep, exactly. She's learning the idea of interest. She's learning about keeping her commitments. And, if it's something that we're in town and she wants it, or maybe she doesn't have quite enough money yet, then we can tell her, okay, hey, we'll loan you the money, but here's how much we're going to add on to the cost in interest as you pay us back over time. Or else you can go home and you can wait, earn the money if you don't want to spend that extra on it. And hopefully then we can find it online or come back for it at the point in time you have enough money. But then she's running the risk that she may not be able to find it at that point.
All right, so as we wrap up, Amy, any final thoughts with regards to kids and money?
It's going to take some effort. It can be fun effort, though. You can figure out what's important and ways to create a system. I'm a systems person, so I love this and I love things related to my kids. But I think make it your own. Whatever way you do this, make it something that works for you and that you can try to be consistent about, be intentional about. Like I said, we are not perfect at this. And my daughter may not do her weekly chores. And in fact, while we've all been home with COVID, she's doing a lot more things just as part of being our community. And we've given her other big jobs to do, like that might be more like bonuses without her doing her weekly stuff because she's just started doing that. So she may do a section of weeding in the yard that we set a certain price on. Mm-hmm. My son, he really hasn't started his weekly chores yet.
He is 3 after all.
He is 3. We've come up with a list. He's excited about his list, but we're overwhelmed right now. And him being a 3-year-old, we have to be there with him when he does it. Mm-hmm. That's some effort. But he did destroy some squishies, these little soft squishy things that his sister bought. It was one of the first things she ever ordered online. Oh. And so he has to earn some money to buy those back for her. So right now we're in this big yard project. And so he knows that every weekend when we're out there, he can earn money. We're putting in these raised flower beds. And before we put in the extra dirt, we need to get some of the small rocks and pebbles out of the garden. And so he has this pail that we've told him every time he fills his bucket with little rocks, we'll give him $1.
Okay.
So, that's not what we intended. We intend for him to do his weekly work, but it's not happening. So we're giving him other ways to win. So you just have to adjust and make it work for where you're at the moment.
There are so many great ideas that we've talked about here today, Amy, with kids and money. But I think it is also important to realize that we're all just trying to do the best we can right now. And if you've got to modify your strategy, if you've got to do what you can to get by and keep everybody sane, that's okay in this day and age.
It's always okay to Jag, right? We're never perfect. COVID has shined a light on the fact that maybe we try a little too hard sometimes and we need to give ourselves some grace. That could be the case all the time, I think, especially on a topic like this. They're kids, they're humans, we're humans. It's never going to go perfect. On this topic, I also have a great blog post. It's one of my favorite blog posts that you can find.
Great. So we'll link to that page at thimbleberryfinancial.com. And that is the best way to reach Amy, or you can call her at
503-610-6510.
All right, Amy, pleasure as always. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jag.
Registered representative. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer. Member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisor representative, Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated. Cambridge does not offer tax or legal advice. Thimbleberry Financial is located at 650 Northeast Holiday Street, Suite 1600, Portland, Oregon, 97232.